Last night on Click R3, we discussed this rumored report going around that Sony would be raising PlayStation 5 prices. However, it was framed that they'd be raising prices in Europe. Turns out there's a bit more to that story because Sony showed up this morning and just shocked everyone because the PlayStation 5 price is indeed going up again. And now there are so many questions about really the place of consoles in the current market, but also about an apparent PlayStation 6 that could be coming next year, holiday 27. I don't know about that one with the prices we're looking at currently. We're going to go over all of that here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So let's take a look. This is over on PlayStation Blog, where they say new price changes for PS5, PS5 Pro, and PlayStation Portal Remote Player. Man, even the Portal getting hit with the price increase. So, before we go to that, okay, let's review what these systems launched at originally back in 2020. We'll start with, all right, the PS5 with the disc, the disc drive on board, $500. The PlayStation 5 digital was $400. Okay, so $400 and $500. Great. The PlayStation 5 Pro, of course, came out years after those released, but it came out at the price of $700. All right. And then the PlayStation Portal was $200. Of course, all this in the US, it's going to vary by region. But with that in mind, let's see where we are with pricing now. Prices effective starting April 2nd, 2026. With continued pressures in the global economic landscape, we've made the decision to increase the prices of PS5, PS5 Pro, and PlayStation Portal Remote Player globally. We know that price changes impact our community, and after careful evaluation, we found this was a necessary step to ensure we can continue delivering innovative, high-quality gaming experiences to players worldwide. The prices: the PS5. This is the slim model with the disc drive attached out of the box, $650. The PS5 Digital Edition, of course, no disc drive, $600. The PS5 Pro, get this, $900. If you want the PS5 Pro with a disc drive, tack on another $80, $980. And yes, if you're in a state that has tax, you're going to see a north of $1,000 show up on that register display, little digital display on checkout. We really are there. It's happening. All right. Now, there's discussion as to why the pricing is going up, and I feel like we've been over this multiple times with the whole situation with DRAM right now, AI with the data centers that already is kind of sounding a little sketchy in the news, like, oh, is this actually going to be a thing, or are they going to pull back from it? At least right now, based on, I guess, the ordering for the parts, and Sony doesn't really want to lose money on systems that are in year 6. This is just what the price appears to be based on their own internal figures. Now, I think there's also logistics that are going to play into this because now there's discussion around shipping and gas and all kinds of stuff there. So that is a whole thing of delivering a physical good like a console here with the PlayStation 5. But either way, no matter how you end up trying to justify or spin these prices, guys, we're in year 6 for these consoles, and they've only gone up in price. The PS5 digital, starting at $400, now $600, is a 50% gain. And I mean, look, technically, if you're playing it like, wow, I have an appreciating asset. Yeah, if you bought these systems at launch, they've actually gotten more valuable despite you using it, I guess, the whole time, for years and years. No, technically now the PS5 is worth more. So, like our parents invested in stocks, we invested in game consoles. It just completely goes against what we've known for game systems for a long, long time. I think that's one of the other reasons why this is so shocking to people, because previously you'd go through a generation, you'd wait to year 6 because you'd probably see it $100, $200 off or something, and that's when you make the move. All right. Now, there was some reactions from like Matt Piscatella and many others who are typically following month to month, week to week, even in terms of the video game marketplace. So this is a chart that he shared here: U.S. hardware market dollar sales by year. All right. And it's interesting because we have this line going across the bar chart. The line is the average sale price of hardware. All right. So if you take all the hardware that's being sold, the average amount that is for each transaction, that's what that line indicates. And then the bar is how much in terms of dollar sales for billions of dollars came through that year. And you can see 2008 is indeed where it peaked at $7.6 billion. And think about 2008, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 were in that $400 to $500 range. Depends on which model you got, because holiday 2007 is when Sony introduced the $400 40 gigabyte PS3. And it had, remember, we had the Spider-Man 3 bundle that went with it, and it had the Blu-ray in there for the movie. But that's when Sony realized, oh, actually, the PS3 has to get cheaper for us to, get this, sell more systems. And it did work. Now, it really, I would say, worked when they got to where the PS3 Slim came out and it was $300. And this is also right around when the Wii went absolutely crazy, and that was $250. Also, don't forget, we had the PSP and the DS running alongside of these consoles. They would count into the hardware conversation with these different numbers, and they were just cheaper across the board versus their home console counterparts. Now you can see it slowly did, as you'd expect throughout a generation, start to wind down, but the pricing, this line didn't go up. It didn't shoot up until we got to, 2013, when the Xbox One and the PS4 came out, and those were more expensive out of the gate there. Like the Xbox One being $500, and the PS4, while it came in at $400, it was still more expensive than what we were seeing at that time for the average like PlayStation 3, right? So with that in mind, you can see this line, the average sale price, has only gone up, and sure, we are seeing more revenue come in for the hardware spending on dollar sales. But we're still looking back at this time period where 2008 was the peak, 2007 was very good, 2009 was very good, just for cumulative dollar sales. And a lot of that had to do with the hardware just being more approachable. And yes, you had Microsoft with a 360 that was very interesting to the marketplace, and the Wii that was like a little phenomenon. And then we eventually see Sony start to catch up with the PS3. People look back on that as kind of like this golden era of gaming, and I mean, the numbers kind of agree with them as well, so it's hard to sort of argue with that necessarily. But then we had this take, which I thought was interesting, from Matt, saying as video game hardware prices continue to jump rapidly, this market will lose presence in middle-income households, while lower-income households may be removed entirely. Video game players can be expected to shift to low barrier of entry, more accessible gaming options as they get priced out. So the more accessible, low barrier of entry for people right now in gaming will be last generation, or your phones, or whatever your PC can manage to play. Like that's kind of where we are with this. It's hard to recommend someone to go out and buy a PS5 right now at $600, $650, right in there. It just doesn't make sense, especially since we're expecting Sony to attempt a PlayStation 6 release holiday of 2027. At that point, if you're already going to go in for $600, we'll say at the baseline, you may as well just start saving right now and be ready to go for what could end up being a $1,000 PlayStation 6, right? I mean, there's going to be backwards compatibility, we figure, with the PS6. You may as well go that route. But this brings into question where we are right now in the video game market, because the inflation argument's kind of out the window. Remember before, it was like, oh, well, if you go back and you look at inflation for the PS4 versus what the PS5 is, it lines up. It doesn't really line up anymore. Like, we're beyond the idea of just the difference in the value of the dollar. There are really just like external factors happening. And I know AI is pointed to currently, data centers, the RAM, the DRAM crunch that's happening. Sure. But it's also seems to be this case of almost normalization of the more expensive system, because even with the price increase that Sony did on the PS5, it was still the best-selling console like for the last few months now, and that's even with Nintendo and their Switch 2 on the market. That is $450 right now to start. Didn't really seem to matter the difference there necessarily. And as we work towards more and more of more affluent households that are just buying consoles, you do wonder what that ends up doing to the revenue that's actually generated beyond just the console. Because I do also see the consoles are bought in affluent households, we'll say, almost as status symbols, but not necessarily as, oh, I'm buying this because I'm playing all these games and even the free to play stuff necessarily, and where money can flow in through for microtransactions. It's just you are eliminating a large number of people by way of just being completely priced out, even at the baseline level starting at $600. And I'll say right now, looking to 2027 holiday when this PS6 is apparently coming out, that feels like, to me anyway, the most challenging launch that Sony will have to face. And that's saying something after the PlayStation 3. But the PS6, I mean, we considered, because I've had conversations like this on Click R3 with Ryan, we considered the PS5 Pro at $700 to be what's called a boutique, as in, oh, it's more enthusiast level, it's not for everyone. So at $700, if the PS6 does launch at 700 right now, I said before when we were talking about on the podcast, if these prices are correct with this price increase, I'm kind of falling in line with like 800 might be best case scenario. Is that not then a boutique price for a boutique console that is apparently going to be their baseline system for the next generation? Because then I just don't know how many people are necessarily going to move to it. They'll stick with a PS5 that apparently is just getting more valuable. Like they made a good investment if they bought it when it came out. But what I mean is that they're just going to stick with that. Like the cross gen for a PS5 to PS6 is going to be insane. I think we're still going to see PS5 logos for end cards and different games probably well into the late 2030s at this point. And it's just because people are trying to figure out ways to get into maybe the PlayStation 6 generation. And the only thing we've seen over this entire generation are just prices increasing. So that's all you can really expect to happen at this time. Maybe the AI bubble will burst and maybe RAM will become very plentiful, or maybe on the manufacturing side, we figure out ways to just be able to produce more of it so that the supply is able to outpace demand. But at least right now in this current climate, it's doesn't look to be the case. So what will happen when Sony starts to really talk about the PS6? People are going to be very skeptical because they feel like, oh, this thing's probably going to be too expensive for me. And that again, that bodes a significant challenge for Sony. I'm going to be curious to see what this price increase does for PlayStation 5 sales, especially throughout this year going into 2027, because I think that'll be a pretty strong indicator as to where we'll stand on Sony's attempt at a next generation going into next year. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below in the comments. The PlayStation 5 jumping $100, $150 if it's a PS5 Pro. We heard rumblings of this, but are you shocked that it was just like rip the Band-Aid off? Here we go, guys. The PS5 now starts at $600, more than 5 years into the generation. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.